In this episode of $1,000 Car Guy, we're going to be installing this tow hitch onto my 2012 Kia Soul.
It's my life, and it's now or never. I ain't gonna live forever. I just want to live while I'm alive.
This job is fairly simple for what it is, but to make my life easier, I'm going to be removing the rear wheels from the car so that I can get better access to the inner fender liners. If you can reach them and remove them without doing that, I would suggest doing it that way. Before jacking up the car, make sure to loosen up all the lug nuts on the wheels, that way you're not trying to break them loose in the air. The wheel locks loosened and the regular lug nuts loosened, we can now find a suitable place to jack up the car. Remember not to put your jack anywhere, it's going to go through the floor. We now have the car jacked up and supported on 2 jack stands and blocks of wood holding up the rear of the car, but as you can see, both tires are now off the ground completely, so let's go ahead and remove them all the way. Now with the wheels off, you can see why I wanted to remove them. On this side it's not too bad. We need to remove this inner fender liner. In order to do so, there's a couple regular Phillips head screws, and then there's these locking Phillips head, so the inner part kind of spins out and then you pull the whole pin out. So there's a bunch of those on this side that we need to remove. And then if we look on the other side, you can see that because of the probably weather package that this car has, maybe not, it is all one solid piece all the way around. So we only need to get back here, but in order to make my life easier, again, by doing more work, we're gonna go ahead, remove all these retainer clips and screws and pull out the whole inner fender liner. If you find yourself struggling with these push-in pins like I do sometimes, there is a little trick to it. Just keep pressure on the outside. And just slowly back it all the way out. It's very, very light threads in there, and then the rest of the receiver will just pull out. So just take your time, try not to get frustrated with it, and you'll have a lot more luck that way. With all of your pins and screws removed, you should be able to pull out your inner fender liner. I'm going to start near the front of the car. Just slowly pull on everything, making sure to avoid what looks like an ABS line or something in the back. Very dusty, since these have never been out since I bought the car new. Ah, they got me. There's one more up underneath the rear of the car back here. Let's go ahead and get that one and then pull it all the way out. There, we should be free now. Looks good. Let's go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Here on the passenger side, the next thing we need to remove is these rear tow hooks. So depending on how your car is optioned, you may have one of these on the passenger side and the driver's side, but on mine in North America, we just have it on the passenger side. Now up top, we're gonna have 2 14mm bolts. Go ahead and break them loose. And underneath, there's going to be 2 more 14mm bolts holding it from the bottom. Go ahead and remove them. I've already removed the bottom 2 bolts. As you can see, I got that front one out. So the only one holding this whole tow hook in is this reassembly, and you want to know that once you get this bolt out, it is just going to fall, and it is heavy. See, I didn't want to be underneath of it when it came out, so that's why I saved this bolt for last. If I was smart, I would have saved the front one for last because it would have been easier. When you take out all these bolts, make sure to put them somewhere you will not reuse them. There are new bolts in the kit that you're going to get. That was a live spider. And you don't want to use these old bolts, use the new ones in your kit. They are much more important. If we take a look at the driver's side, you'll notice that I do have 2 pre-existing holes here. Nothing was in them, and there are no holes underneath. So depending on your kit, make sure that you have a place to bolt it to. As you can see on my draw-tight kit, there's only 2 bolt holes on the sides of each of it. On some of the other kits I've seen, they actually pick up the bottom half, so it uses 4 bolts on one side, just like the stock tow hook receiver. So some kits are different, you may get more hardware. Mine is the much more cheap, simple version, so we're only going to use 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Next up, we need to remove the exhaust hangers because the new bracket is going to slide up over top of it. From everything I've seen, what you want to do is remove the top piece of this. So you got to slide that over. And then near the back, you'll see the other one. Again, do the top one. If you leave some of these rubber brackets on, they may be in your way for installation. So remove the top, that way the whole exhaust pulls down. Here we are, depending on what type of climate you're in or how many years old your car is. These may be more difficult. I saw a lot of people online spraying these down with soapy water. If you're using like Dawn dish detergent, that's just gonna dry rot these rubber brackets. Like, it's a degreaser. It will pull the lasting grease out of this, and then you'll be replacing these in a couple years. I see people do it with tires when they want to check for air leaks. Don't use Dawn dish soap or a degreaser to look for air bubbles. You will just dry rot your tires. Anyway, so I'm in Florida, so things are probably a little bit easier for me, but you could buy a special tool for this, or you can just get yourself a set of like pipe wrench, and it just comes right off. So, you know, do what works for you. This worked for me. I already had these tools. I don't like to buy new ones. With both of the exhaust hangers removed, we can now drop this down a little bit further than we could before. So now it's time to begin the installation process. Here we see the orientation of how the tow hitch is going to be mounted. They'll probably only be able to fit one way unless you screw it up really badly. You're going to want to start with the passenger side because getting this part over top of the exhaust is going to be the most difficult thing. I'm going to be experimenting with using a jack to try and hold most of the weight for this. I'm sure it would be a lot easier with two people. So if you have a friend that can help you at this point, now is the time to call them. I also want to take some time to talk about the hardware in this kit. So these are most likely hardened bolts, and you'll see that they each have a washer on them. These are a toothed washer. You want to make sure that the teeth part are grabbing into the mounting surface side. I'll show that again once I get to that point. But you should have 4 to 6 depending on your kit. And if they don't come supplied with it and you bought this kit used or something, make sure you get hardened, at least grade 8 bolts for this. See, if you don't got friends, you gotta think smarter, not harder. So I'm using the jack to support the weight, and then it's a super snug fit, which is probably really helping me in the situation. I just kind of knocked it into place. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up some of these bolts, get them started on either side, and I'll show you what's next. So I got everything in place, starting one bolt on one side and then one bolt on the other, and then back to the rear side bolt, and then the same on the other side. The driver's side, since it never had anything in those threads, they were kind of gummed up, but I didn't force it, just slowly thread it in and out until it cleared out the debris in the middle of the threads, and then the bolt went in fine. But as you can see, they're still all loose. I wanted to make sure that I had everything set before tightening it all down. So what I want to do now is take the jack out, I'll level it, tighten it all down, and then what you want to do is look at your manufacturer specifications for how much torque. Go borrow a torque wrench from a friend, or go down to Advanced Auto or AutoZone and rent one. It could save you or somebody else's life on the road if your trailer would come undone because you didn't tighten them to the correct spec. So look in your documentation, tighten them down to the right torque setting, and basically it's time for reassembly. Now that we've got the hitch all bolted in, snug as a bug, I'm going to go ahead and put the exhaust back up where it goes, put in the inner fender liners, and slap the wheels back on so we can put it back on the ground. Remember, once you're back on the ground, to give your lug nuts a good torquing. So we are almost done, but I have one of those tri-ball hitch receiver pieces, so it'll adapt to 3 different sizes of trailer. Now this is just a 1 1/4 inch receiver, so my other one is a 2-inch receiver. It's a very common size. So what I did was I went on good old Amazon, where I got these parts, and I will link a description below in case you need to get the same thing for yourself. And I found this. It is a easy lift hitch adapter. So it just slides right in, line up the hole, slip a correct size pin through it, which I don't have, and then you can slip on your even bigger hitch assembly, and you're good to go. So that's how you install a trailer hitch receiver on your Kia Soul. This should work for anything like 2010 to 2019, I'm pretty sure. My specific model is a 2012, but all Kia Souls are basically the same. If I wasn't recording everything, this probably was a half-hour job. Even so, it probably only took me a little over an hour to do everything. That's not that bad for now having the capabilities to tow. You're probably thinking, well, yeah, you can tow, but you don't have a harness hooked up to it. That's going to be in our next episode. Stay tuned, maybe hit the subscribe button if you want to, in case you are looking for a how-to on putting a new trailer harness in your stock Kia Soul. Thanks for watching this episode of $1,000 Car Guy. I hope to see you on the next one. that's it. Bye.